David Eby there, warning that lifting the tanker ban is risky. He says it could cost the province support from some coastal First Nations on other energy projects. So how do you circle this square? You've got the federal government and Alberta on one side and seemingly the government of British Columbia on the other. Is there a workaround? Is there an off-ramp? Is there a way to make everybody happy? Let's bring in CTV News political analyst Sharan Kaur, who's standing by with more. So let me get your take, if I can, on this situation playing out, this pipeline politics involving Alberta and British Columbia and, of course, Ottawa. Sharon.
Well, it's definitely an interesting dynamic taking place right now. It's not new to Canada. We've had issues in the past where certain provinces are very pro and certain provinces can be against it. In the past, it's been provinces like Quebec, for example, when Energy East was trying to get built. But I think what's really important here, and this is where I think Premier Eby needs to look at things from a federation's lens, not just from the lens of BC, is that for the first time in a long time of there being a Liberal government in office, there's actually a positive relationship between Alberta and Ottawa. There's been this big issue of alienation for quite some time, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that Alberta can't get their resources to market. A lot of it has to do with the fact that proponents don't want to invest in mega projects because it's just sunk cost for them because there's no guarantees. So this MOU is a first step, and it's a really important step in a positive working relationship between Alberta and Ottawa. We're seeing a positive relationship. It's not adversarial. We've seen before what it's been like when Alberta and Ottawa are at war here. Now, I think the important thing for Premier Eby is to understand that we are in this really particular moment in time where we're dealing with a very challenging partner down south, and we have to focus on what we can do as a country to become more sovereign, to become more independent, and a lot of that is going to depend on getting our resources to market.
Right, and I know that Eby also slammed what he called so-called secret talks about pipelines let's bring in another province, Saskatchewan, involving Scott Moe, the premier there, and Eby saying, hold on a second, here you have Ottawa and Alberta and Saskatchewan talking about a pipeline or an energy project that would directly affect British Columbia. I'm just curious, what is the way forward here? If you've got a government in Victoria, provincially, which says no, but you have a federal government and a government in Edmonton that says yes, then what?
Well, it's really difficult when you've got provinces that are so resource heavy, that are landlocked. They got to go in one direction or the other. So I think that Premier Eby is in his right to raise concerns, but I don't think he's in a right to unilaterally decide whether or not he's even part of initial discussions. I think it's totally okay for Alberta to have conversations with Ottawa, for Saskatchewan to have conversations with Ottawa. It's going to be the Prime Minister's job to kind of be the adult in the room to say, let's level the playing field and how can we make this work? BC can't just say no because it's politically unhelpful for them. Again, we have to look at this from a federation perspective. This is going to get hairy. It's not going to be pretty. I think it's going to get a little hairy, but I do think Premier Eby is not reading the room right at the moment. There are people in BC who are supportive of a pipeline if it means there's benefit to the country.
Right. And so the question is, trying to make that case for the benefits, trying to make sure that you get the support of First Nations that may be affected by this, and also the government in British Columbia. I wonder whether, to a certain extent, this does come down perhaps to money, Sharon.
It always comes down to money to a certain extent. I think what's really important and what needs to be communicated to these First Nations communities and those around there is that these projects are going to be going through the region. They have to be economically beneficial to those communities as well, whether it's through jobs, whether it's through financial compensation. There has to be not necessarily a quid pro quo, but there has to be a benefit. There's a lot of First Nations and Indigenous communities that are very pro-development, and I think we're at a point that the answer can't just be no. It has to be, what will this bring us to our community? And that might just be money.
Sharan Kaur, a political strategist here and our commentator at CTV News. Good to have you with us, Sharon, and thanks for this. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.